Hi, and welcome to our live Q&A that we have every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Every week, we are live on our Spectra Baby USA main Facebook page, and we are live on Instagram. Now on Instagram, the live video will be available on our story for 24 hours after that time. And on Facebook, the videos will be posted on our timeline as well as available within the video section. So today we're going to be discussing a very important topic that a lot of moms are concerned about and discuss and bring up pretty often. And it's a topic that a lot of moms might get conflicting information on. So it really is something that we want to not only address today, but we welcome, as always, your questions and comments during this time so that we're able to meet your needs, because we want to listen to our moms and our families and discuss and answer things that are important to you and what affects you and your little one as along your breastfeeding and pumping journey. So today's topic is, am I producing enough milk for my baby? And a lot of moms ask this. And of course, there's many ways to discuss this in terms of the topic itself and how to word it. So a lot of moms will say, am I pumping enough? Am I producing enough breast milk? Is my baby getting enough breast milk? So that's what we're going to be talking about today is, am I producing enough milk for my baby? So each week we will have a live blog article on our Spectra Baby USA website. So if you go to Spectra Baby USA, you can click blog, and we'll have a live blog that is linked to this question and answer topic that we're talking today. So again, it is, am I producing enough milk for my baby? So how do you know that you're producing enough milk for your baby? There are a lot of ways that you can check whether baby is satisfied at breast. And some of those ways would be, one is, how do your breasts feel before nursing and after nursing? How do they feel before pumping, after pumping? Do you feel a difference in how that they feel in terms of their degree of fullness? So, and it also depends on the age of your baby, of course, as well, because many of you out there that have breastfed and had a baby before, you know that you go through that normal period of what's called engorgement, right? Where you go through and you almost have watermelons or cantaloupes for a certain period of time. And then as your milk supply starts to regulate out, your breasts feel different because they're not as engorged, they're not as swollen, because your breast milk supply has regulated to what baby is requiring, what baby needs, what their nutritional intake is requiring of you. And this sometimes can cause concerns of mothers, and many moms do stop nursing during that time or shortly thereafter because they feel that they're not producing enough milk for their baby. So it is important that you get evidence-based support and information as to whether you are producing enough for your baby and whether baby is getting enough breast milk from you. So one resource that you can reach out to would be an IBCLC, a lactation consultant that you can meet with in person, and you can do pre-weights before you nurse and post-weights of after you nurse to be able to gauge how much breast milk the baby is getting. But let's back up just a little bit and let's talk about what the blog article touches on and some simple ways that you can know if baby is satisfied at breast. If you're producing enough milk and if you're making enough milk for baby and baby is getting what they need from you. So one way is, how is baby after you're nursing? Is baby happy and satisfied? A lot of times you might see that hashtag of the milk drunk, right? The baby comes off the breast. It's best to allow baby to nurse until they release from the breast, until they say, hey, mom, I'm done. And then you can always attempt to burp and offer the other side. It's kind of like like ourselves, how we might have a salad or an appetizer before a meal, and then we want the actual meal and sometimes even a dessert, right? So it's the same way for babies. You know, it's not just nutrition, it's comfort also. So it's important to offer both sides at every feeding. But how is baby after they come off the breast? Are they content? Are they happy? Are they satisfied? Or are you noticing that baby is sleepy and lethargic all the time, right? Is baby hard to wake up? Now, there are different stances surrounding that, in the sense of that, you know, if there were a lot of medications involved, or if there's other medical indications there that are involved, that baby might be very sleepy and difficult to wake up. But what we're referring to is on the normal course throughout that day, throughout that 24-hour period. How is baby after that feeding period? Now, of course, there's moms out there that are exclusive pumpers, right? And so they're thinking, okay, Jen, what does this mean for me? I'm exclusively pumping. How much should I be pumping at a time? And what does that mean for, am I producing enough milk for baby? Well, let's talk about that. So research tells us that the amount of intake that babies take, whether it's at breast or needing expressed breast milk, is variable. So it can be anywhere from 19 ounces to 30 ounces. But the average intake for baby that's needed from about 1 month on through that first year is about 25 ounces in a 24-hour period. So if you think about that, a lot of moms are probably going, oh my gosh, seriously? I'm thinking that I need to be filling this 5 to 8 ounce, collection bottle when I'm pumping. And I'm thinking that if I'm only pumping, 2 ounces combined, that I'm not producing enough. Well, that's one of those falsehoods that's out there. And that's what we want to provide you, this information, so that you feel more comfortable and confident in what you're producing and providing to baby. Because a breast pumping and pumping is not always a great indicator of your supply. Why? Because there's a lot of different variables involved based on what type of pump that you're using, whether your body has adjusted to the pump, whether baby is often much more efficient at extracting the breast milk from the breast versus a breast pump. There also are these other elements that are in play, such as your lactation hormones that are in play, and the amount of power that human touch has in regulating and improving your breast milk supply. So when baby is at breast, a lot of times they're much more efficient at removing the milk than a breast pump might be. But in addition to that, there is that element of human touch, right? And that is so incredibly powerful in the sense that it really helps to not only improve and stabilize and maintain your milk supply, but it really helps to remove that milk. And that's why we talked about previously, and we bring up a lot, is what's called hands-on pumping. Massaging your breast before you pump and while you're pumping. Making sure that you're doing a lot of breast massage and breast compressions, and that you're doing a lot of hands-on touch when you are pumping and even when you're breastfeeding, because that can really help to ensure that you're increasing the amount of milk that baby is getting at a time, and that also you're promoting the good peaks of lactation hormones, and it also will help maximize your pumping output. So we talked about that, it's variable in terms of that babies will consume or need about 19 to 30 ounces a day. That consumption is variable, but the average is about 25 ounces a day. And that's from about 1 month of age to 6 months of age. And that nutritional need does not necessarily increase from that 6 month to 1 year point. So when you think about that, take a step back and think, okay, so if baby is nursing, or if I'm pumping about 8 times a day, and the average is about 25 ounces a day, if I'm pumping, let's say 8 times a day, so then you divide 25 by 8, and you get what is that range? That's about what, 3 to 4 ounces or so? So that's what you should be expecting if baby is nursing 8 times a day, or if you're pumping 8 times a day. So the average pumping output is about 2 ounces. And again, a lot of that has to do with the type of pump that's used, the time frame that you are postpartum, whether it's weeks or months, whether your milk supply is well established, whether you're responding well to the breast pump, whether you're exclusively pumping or you're exclusively breastfeeding, or you're part-time pumping at work. But keeping in mind that you don't need to be pumping this huge, extraordinary amount can be very comforting to a mom, because it's ensuring that you are producing enough for baby and that you are doing well. And if you do have concerns, we welcome you to reach out to our lactation consultants. We have an amazing Facebook page, the Spectra Certified IBCLC page, where you can private message that page, or on Instagram, you can send a direct message and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. And where do I go from here? Am I doing well? Am I producing enough? And that's really important to know, to reach out, because we all have self-doubts as parents and as mothers, right? We always think that we can be doing something differently or doing something better. And so one of the number one reasons that mothers stop breastfeeding and they stop pumping is because they say, I'm not producing enough. I wasn't producing enough for baby. And so you've got to look at, is that actually a seed of doubt? Is that based on factual information? Or is it something that you're really just having this seed of self-doubt that's really coming to this realization that it's now become fact, that you're just not sufficient enough, that you're just not producing enough? And what's disheartening as a mother to myself and also a lactation consultant is that often these moms have maybe some naysayers in their lives that are saying, hey, that's just, you're pumping what? That's not enough. Or look at baby's having to nurse, every hour and a half, 2 hours. You're not making enough. You're not making enough. And you got to take a step back and realize that babies do need to be nursing and feeding frequently, right? They need to be nursing that 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period. And if you're exclusively pumping, we need to be mimicking that frequent removal of milk, because whatever is removed is what is made. That's what's produced. So another thing that you can look at outside of just this quantity of amount of pumping or the quantity that baby should be getting at a time, we talked about how baby is after nursing, right? How are they satisfied? Do you get that milk drunk baby, right? Are they happy and content? Now, if you have a baby that is overly sleepy, is crying all the time, there could be some other variables in there. So we welcome you to reach out to an IBCLC, a lactation consultant. We have some that are on staff that you can reach out to us. Again, you can direct message us on Instagram. You can private message the Spectra Certified IBCLC Facebook page, and we'll discuss the specifics to you, because it is important to discuss situations that are specific to you and to your little one. Okay, so I'm so glad we have somebody saying, and Natalia on Instagram says, thank you for this. I feel reassured. And that's important. It is very important, because again, there's so much self-doubt that can happen as a mom, right? There's so much going on that we're just like, I'm just not doing this right. And especially in those early weeks, there's not enough talk out there that's saying, hey, this is what's going to happen, on the second day or the week, whatever. And this picture perfect image that we have in our minds and our heads, that everything is just going to be peachy keen and perfect along the way. And there's going to be road bumps, just like everything. Like when we're learning to walk and we have to fall, and then we have to keep getting back up and trying to walk again, just like when you're seeing a toddler learning to walk for the first time, right? So there's always that learning curve, just whether it's riding a bike or learning to walk or whatever. So, and a lot of times we need reassurance, and no matter what we're doing in life. So having that support from mom to mom and having that information is really important. So let's go over to Nicole, and she says, making sure baby isn't overfed is huge too. Baby needs to be pace fed, otherwise mama can't keep up with the baby's demands. So Nicole, that's an awesome point. And that absolutely is true. So there is some mixed thought processes out there that pace feeding is not necessary. However, there's a lot of research to support that pace feeding is so incredibly important. And why that's the case is that it's very different when a baby is nursing at breast and when baby is feeding on another device, such as a bottle. There is a very different suck that is needed and different muscles are used. And often based on the bottle and nipple that's used, the baby can actually suckle and gain more intake at a much easier way because there's different muscles that are used, and oftentimes just like if you tip that bottle over where it continues to drip. In other words, they're not self-regulating their own intake like they would be at breast, right? They have to really work to get that milk out, and when they're done, they stop. And absolutely, it's true. Nicole, that's wonderful. And we'll make sure to provide some evidence-based resources on what we're talking about this pace feeding, because I'm sure there's parents out there that are like, what the heck is pace feeding? So basically, pace feeding is a way in which that you are offering the bottle and that you're ensuring that the bottle is not fully tipped up. So it's important that the bottle is more horizontal, and that the milk is about halfway in that nipple so that the baby actually has to work for it, that you allow for the bottle to be taken away at certain portions so that the baby can really breathe and self-regulate and really tell you, hey, I need some more. And there's much more to that that's involved, and we'll make sure to provide some links and information on that because it is important, absolutely, because what can often happen is that the baby will take much more than they actually nutritionally need, which is what she's referring to of being overfed. And then you have moms that say, oh my goodness, my baby is getting, 5, 6, whatever ounces, and I can't keep up. I can't pump what my baby is demanding now. And that does happen quite often. And that's where moms say, I wasn't enough. I wasn't producing enough for baby, but there could have been contributing factors to that. So you're absolutely right. And we appreciate you bringing that up. So let's jump back over to Instagram over here. So Tiffany said, my baby's lost a pound since birth. His pediatrician did weighted feeding and assured me I'm making enough, but he's gaining back the weight so slow. Any suggestions on how I can make him gain weight faster? Well, Tiffany, I applaud you. You're doing an amazing job. First of all, keep your head up, because it is very important to remember that based on the birth experience, birth weight can often be inflated. And there's a lot of research out there that supports that based on how much intravenous fluid that a mom receives during labor can actually inflate the baby's birth weight. So what happens is that birth weight has been inflated. It's actually not an accurate depiction of what that baby actually weighs, because then the baby's losing a lot of just that water weight. And then that normal weight loss that happens after birth is exacerbated, and that can often occur. Now, in your case, Tiffany, we don't know necessarily what the causes were per se, but either way, we're at where we are now. So I think it's amazing that baby is gaining weight back. And let's look at how much weight baby should be gaining. Now, based on a baby's age, at about that first month or so, about the first month of life to about 4 months, baby should be gaining about an ounce a day. So usually that's you should look at about 5 to 7 ounces a week that baby should be gaining until about 4 months of age. And then after 4 months of age, you'd be looking at about 3 to 5 ounces a week the baby should be gaining. So you also have to have a realistic expectation of how fast baby gaining that weight and how much should be gaining. So if baby is under that 4 months of age, you should be looking at about 5 to 7 ounces gained a week. And if baby is over 4 months of age, it would be about 3 to 5 ounces a week. but it sounds like baby is under that 4-month mark. So in that case, it would be about 5 to 7 ounces a week. Some things that you can do is you can do what's called a breast compression, and that can help to increase the amount of milk that baby is getting at breast. And there also has been research to show that it can actually help to increase the fat intake of baby at breast. So Tiffany, I would encourage you that you can always direct message us on Instagram, and we can look at how things are going with you, all the surrounding factors, and provide you some helpful links as well. But I would definitely look into some breast compressions, because that can really help with improving baby's intake at breast. Okay, but congratulations, Tiffany, you're doing an awesome job. You really, really are. So Crystal on Instagram says, some very important info for babies in daycare. Teachers at my son's daycare did not know how to pace feed. And you're absolutely right, Crystal. There's some really, really great information. And we'll also really look to provide that also to, you know, a lot of us have to return to work after baby is born, and educating the caregivers of our little ones on pace feeding is really important, because quite honestly, unless this is their field and this is their passion, they may know nothing about it. And it's not anything that they're trying to do negative. They just don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? So, you know, providing some good evidence-based information and providing them a nice little handout is really important. And Crystal, you're absolutely right that it's important that we really provide what our desire is of how to feed our babies, right? Whether, you know, if we choose to be providing breast milk to the baby, that we say, hey, I'm providing breast milk to baby. Hey, I want the quantities to be X amount per feeding. And I do highly recommend that you look at providing more towards that 2 to 4 ounce range per feeding, especially based on baby's age, because it is important that they self-regulate their intake per feeding, and that they also are not being overfed. And just in the event that baby doesn't finish the whole bottle, my goodness, you don't want to be wasting that precious milk. So that's really important. Let's jump back over to Facebook, and then we will go back to Instagram questions. So Michelle on Facebook says, why does my supply go up and down? For example, I was pumping 5 ounces, now I'm getting 2 to 3 ounces. So Michelle, supply can regulate based on the frequency of removal of the milk. It can vary based on the time of month, especially if you've had a return of menses. It can vary based on medications or supplements that you might be taking, such as over-the-counter, like a cold medicine, a prescription, even birth control can affect the amount of your supply at a time. It can also be the age of baby, because around that 4-month mark, your milk supply does start to regulate more so towards what baby is needing. So that can be a factor that's coming into play. And then the time of day, because usually earlier in the morning is when the lactation hormones are the highest. So if you're pumping 5 ounces in the morning, and then in the afternoon you're pumping 2 to 3, and you're like, what the heck, what's going on? I'm losing my supply. And in all reality, you're usually going to have a higher amount that you're pumping or baby that's receiving at breast in the morning time frame, because that's when the lactation hormones are the highest. So Michelle, I welcome you to private message our Spectra certified IBCLC page, and we can look further into that to see us specifics to you. But it can be very variable throughout a nursing relationship and pumping experience as well. So we're going to jump to just a few more questions here on Facebook and then back to Instagram. So Aisha says, when pace feeding, isn't the baby swallowing more air if the bottle is horizontal? Aisha, this is a common misconception. And the reason why is that baby actually is intaking air more quickly when they are ingesting milk much more quickly. So just like at breast, where they're allowed to self-regulate their intake, the same thing occurs when pace feeding, and we can provide that information because there's a lot more involved in that. But when the milk is horizontal, like the bottle is horizontal, and the milk is halfway in that nipple, the baby is able to more self-regulate the intake, the flow, And when you're allowing that bottle to be taken away and they're able to breathe and kind of go, okay, I'm ready for some more, that actually has more impact of what the baby is swallowing versus when people think that the bottle has to be all the way up and the nipple has to be full of milk. They think that's what's contributing to the amount of air that's being intaked by the baby, and that's actually not accurate. So I can certainly appreciate your concern on that, and that is a very common thought, but we'll provide you some more information on pace feeding and why keeping that bottle horizontal does not contribute to more air that's being intaked. Okay, so Nicole over on Facebook says that she's part of a Facebook group and that she's a huge advocate of pace feeding, and that the person part of this group is an IBCLC and a leader, an IBCLC that's certified with Spectra. So that's awesome. We do have that education program and a lot of LCs. And she also has 20 years of experience and ties that important to but she is indicating that not all LCs are educated on pace feeding, which is true. It's a skill that a lot of us have to read about, because just like any profession, like a teaching profession, medical profession, whatever it is, there's a need for continued education. So we have to continually we need to take that upon ourselves to continually look at what is the latest research. What is the latest evidence-based information out there? How can I ensure that I am providing the best support and information to families that I support? And I will tell you that just even personally and professionally, every week I'm constantly looking at what studies are out there, because things do change with time. We learn more, we grow more, and we need to ensure that we're up to date. But you absolutely are accurate that, even pediatricians that are out there may not be well versed on all this information. And to their defense, they don't get breastfeeding education always in medical school. So, that's also important to keep in mind. So let's jump back over to Instagram. And we have a question that says, any tricks to increase milk supply? So the first thing I would say is, why do you feel that you need to increase your milk supply? Is there actually a need to increase your milk supply? Because a lot of moms, again, feel that they're not producing enough and that they have to increase when there may not truly be a need to do so. But I would always go back to some of the basics, which would be a lot of skin to skin with baby. The more cuddling time that you can be doing, that human touch is really important. Frequent removal of breast milk. The more often and frequently that you're removing breast milk, the more that you are able to produce. Breast massage, hands-on pumping, and breast compressions are some really, really important elements. Now, we do have an amazing graphic as well called that talks about cyclical pumping, and that can be very helpful in peaking those lactation hormones, which can attribute to increasing your milk supply as well. We also have an awesome infographic about maximizing your pumping output, and some of those tips can be helpful in ensuring to maintain and increase your milk supply should that be needed. So hopefully that helps answer your question. But again, you can always direct message us on Instagram if you need further guidance or assistance or specific to you. So we really want that to be an option for you. So one more question on Instagram. And we have somebody on Instagram saying that she's in Chile and that they don't have Spectra in the country, just some other brands. So I'm sorry. I know. We do get a lot of people from other countries that say, help, I want a Spectra pump. I've heard so much great stuff. And so I apologize that we're not available there, but maybe one day we can have it offered there for you. Absolutely. Okay, so Natalia says, my baby is 2 months old and lately he wants to nurse all day and even more at night. I wonder why. Makes me feel I'm not producing enough. So this is a really, really great question and great point, because this comes up a lot and very frequently. So a lot of times babies will go through what's called a growth spurt. Okay, so they will want to nurse more frequently, and what they're doing is they're signaling to your body, hey, start to spike those hormones, start that factory up a little bit more, start to produce a little bit more, because my body is growing and I need a little bit more. And that's okay. Just do a lot of breast compressions, do a lot of breast massage, continue to offer the breast. And that what baby is doing is what they're made to do. They're doing this miraculous job of telling your body, hey, produce more, I need it. Get that factory going a little bit more. And that's okay. That's okay. Don't allow that seed of doubt to come into your mind and think that you're not doing enough and that you're not producing enough, because there's other ways to look at that as well. Is baby satisfied after nursing? And the other thing that I forgot to mention earlier was looking at those diapers, because whatever's going in has to be coming out, right? So look at those diapers. How is baby's diaper output? And you can check that blog article too about how many that you should be expecting based on baby's age. But it is really important indicator too, Natalia, is how are those diapers? I always ask mommies when they say, I'm not making enough. And I'm like, okay, well, is baby only getting your breast milk? Is baby only nursing? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, let's look at those diapers. Because whatever's going in has to be coming out. And if it's only you, it only is coming from you, right? And they're going, oh my goodness, well, baby's pooping 5, 6, whatever times a day. Well, hello, where do you think that's coming from, right? So give yourself a pat on the back and take a breath and just realize that is a great sign. So Natalia, if you want to direct message us on Instagram, please do so. But it sounds like it might be a growth spurt. So I know sometimes that can be exhausting, but doing breast compressions can help. It has been shown to increase the fat intake the baby gets out of feeding. It's also been shown to improve those wonderful lactation hormones that help to increase milk supply, and a lot of breast massage and compressions can help with that. So hopefully that's helpful. So let's jump back over to Facebook. Stephanie has a question. She says, I've been breastfeeding on demand. My baby's 11 weeks old, but I find that sometimes the baby gets frustrated when that he won't latch on, so I have to supplement. I don't pump enough to keep supply for demand needed to supplement with that instead. So I also am set to go back to work in a month, and I really want to build that supply before I go back to work. So Stephanie, I would really, really encourage you, let's take offline and let's look, because it sounds like there might be a lot in play here. And I really want to drill down into what's going on with you and what's going on with baby. Because based on the age of baby, I really want to start, there's so many questions that are going through my mind that I really want to look more in depth as to how we can support you, how we can help you, and how we can get you to where you want to be in your journey. And so there's so many different variables, and this is where a lot of people think that there might be an easy answer to some of these questions, and there's so many pieces to the puzzle that we have to look at. And so the cookie cutter answer may not work for all of these questions. So, there's so many questions that are going through my mind as to how frequent of a removal that you're pumping, how pumping sessions are going. Do you have the proper flange size? How long are you pumping? How much is baby getting supplemented with? How frequently is baby eating? The frustration of not wanting to latch could be the flow preference. A lot of people think that they talk about that nipple confusion. And a lot of that comes from the fact that there is a flow preference, right? When they go on a bottle, that they don't have to wait for that letdown and produce suck to wait for that milk to release and that milk to let down, because bam, it's right there already. And they're using different muscles when they're on the bottle. So it's more of a flow preference, and then they start to prefer that over wanting to nurse. So, again, there's all these different things that are in play. So Stephanie, I would highly encourage you to private message our Spectra certified IBCLC page so that we can look into all these different variables for you, because we want to provide you the information that's going to be best supported for you. So Cecilia says, how about when baby only takes 5 minutes to eat? Well, Cecilia, how old is baby? Because I will tell you that in the very early days and weeks, that baby can take much longer because they're learning, right? Just like we talked about learning to ride a bike or learning to walk, that, you know, it takes longer at first, and then as baby gets much more efficient and their muscles start strengthening and developing, and they're learning that breastfeeding dance a lot better, they can get really efficient at breast, and their feeding time at breast can diminish quite drastically. So depending on how old baby is and how efficient that they've gotten at breast, it could be that they only need to be eating that. So I guess, Cecilia, I would ask the age of baby. I would ask about if baby is satisfied after that time. Is baby exclusively breastfeeding, or are you doing, you know, breastfeeding and providing breast milk and another method? So there's other things that we would need to look at that. But it could be the baby is just efficient at breast, and so again, this is one of those situations where we really need to look at what other factors are involved here, and that's really, really important. So Stephanie says, my little one is such a lazy eater. He will nurse for 3 to 4 minutes and then fall asleep. About all that will wake him back up and removing him from the breast to burp him. Any advice for keeping him interested in nursing longer than a few minutes? So Stephanie, how old, I would ask how old baby is. Sometimes it is a matter of, one thing that I will tell you is a little bit of a personal pet peeve for me professionally is when people have what I call a baby burrito at breast. There is a time and a place for swaddling, but when you're putting a baby to breast, unswaddle that precious little one. Unswaddle, unswaddle. Take those mittens off the baby and allow that baby to have the human touch at breast, because when baby's doing this at breast, there's a reason why. That is Mother Nature's way. That is baby's way of saying they're encouraging the hormones, they're encouraging the milk flow, and that's important. And if baby doesn't have that freedom and range of motion and that comfort to be close to mommy and have a great position and latch, it also can cause them to be really warm, which can make them very sleepy at breast. So one thing I would say is undress baby down to a diaper, do a lot of skin to skin, put the lights down lower, maybe play some comforting music, because people think that if the lights are lower, that baby will actually be more sleepy. But studies has really shown that that really just calms baby down, okay, and allows them to be more alert because they're more calm in nature and they're more responsive to ensure that they are wanting to nurse and they're wanting to play along with this game of learning to eat, right? So undress baby down to a diaper. Make sure baby's not too warm and not swaddled like a burrito and offered breast, okay? And then go back to what we were talking about with frequent offering. You want to try maybe some breast massage and breast compressions to really ensure that baby is getting the most, a mouthful of milk at a time, because that's really important. And the more that you encourage that, the more that baby has to go, oh yeah, I want to eat. Because if baby doesn't want to eat and you're doing breast compressions and massage, then baby's going to pull off and they're going to be done. So that is another way that can be helpful. But again, please reach out if that is not enough help and information for you. So Nicole was saying I was referring to lip and tongue ties that can affect supply. And yes, absolutely. There certainly are situations that can impact the establishment and maintaining of your milk supply. And what's called a lip or a tongue tie, and most frequently it's a tongue tie, a restriction of the muscle. That's right underneath your tongue, is called a tongue tie. And most frequently, research shows that it's the tongue tie that can impact the intake of baby's milk at breast, but also it can impact the milk supply. And again, all of that needs to be referred to a lactation consultant. Seeing a lactation consultant in person, if anything feels off, is really, really, really important. because virtual support is great and it's helpful, and in a lot of ways it can be extremely beneficial. But then there's so many other things that come into play here that we need to be able to see in person and evaluate mom and baby in person. So let's jump back over to Instagram and make sure that there's a question over here. And as Crystal says, is it okay to breastfeed if you're sick, running a fever, or should you exclusively pump during an illness? Awesome question. Love it. Okay, so before you start to exhibit symptoms of an illness, you've actually already exposed baby to that illness. It is extremely important that you continue to nurse when you are sick, unless it is a contraindicated illness, okay? And that list is pretty short of when you should not nurse when you're ill. It's important to do so because baby's already been exposed before you have that fever and the symptoms that you're exhibiting. Your breast milk is creating antibodies against the illness that you have that you need to be passing to baby, okay? So if baby's already been exposed and baby needs to be protected even more so against that illness, then you need to be nursing so that they can get those precious antibodies. So there's no reason to stop breastfeeding when you're sick unless it is one of those very short conditions. And we're talking about things that aren't just caused by a fever. Okay, so Crystal, take care of yourself, stay hydrated for your own health, and keep that baby nursing. So I love that question. Thank you. Absolutely. So how often do you need to sterilize your Spectra parts? And that's a question on Instagram, and then we'll jump back over because I know there's a lot of you waiting on Facebook for questions also. So we recommend that you follow the CDC guidelines for washing and sterilizing your parts. And with that being said, we will make sure to provide that resource to you. And if you want to direct message us, we can provide that the link directly to the PDF there. So we recommend that you follow those guidelines, which means that you really need to be washing frequently your pumping parts. And if you're hand washing, you need to have a dedicated basin and using warm soapy water and allowing them to air dry on an unused dish towel or paper towels. And in terms of sterilization, it is important to sterilize on a more frequent basis, depending whether that's daily or weekly, but it also is dependent upon how frequently that you're pumping. Now you can sterilize with using like a sterilization microwave bag as long as you're using the proper amount of water. That's really important because you don't want the parts to warp. We don't recommend that you use a dishwasher for multiple reasons, one of which is the variable heat that can warp the parts. But the other side of that is this type of soap that you use in the dishwasher can really put a film on the flange that can inhibit the natural secretions of your Montgomery glands on your areola, which can cause other concerns and issues such as chafing and irritation and all sorts of different things. So it's not only the soap that's being used in the dishwasher, but it's also the variable heat. So make sure to reach out to us so that we can provide you the resource directly to the CDC guidelines as well. So thank you for that question. So let's jump back over, and Savannah says, how can I help my pump response? So Savannah, sometimes it takes, not only days, but it can take weeks, and some moms it can take a month or more to learn to respond to your pump. I would highly encourage you to join our Pumping Mom group on Facebook to gain that mom-to-mom support. But also what can also help is what's called that cyclical pumping that we talked about, where you pump on massage mode until you get that spray, that letdown of milk. And then when that then you switch to expression. And then when you're in expression and it starts to slow down, then you switch back to massage and you wait for that spray of milk, and then you continue to do that. So that can help with that. So I would encourage for the mom-to-mom support, I would encourage you to do that, what we call the hands-on pumping with the breast massage, and also look into that cyclical pumping. So Stephanie says, I'm at 1 week postpartum and I will be returning to work in 7 weeks. Any recommendations for starting to build a milk stash? So congratulations on that new little one. So she's 1 week postpartum, so that's a new baby. My goodness, congratulations. So We usually recommend that you try to hold off until about 4 to 6 weeks postpartum to pump, because you really want to, not only for the bonding with baby, but a lot of that skin to skin and cuddle time, and that there's so much else going on to add something else to that mix. But you want to have a good milk established foundation before you start introducing other things. But if you're returning at 7 weeks, so about 2 to 3 weeks before you return to work, Stephanie, is when you should start to introduce the pump. And usually introducing after our morning nursing session is a good time to do that, because that's when the hormones are the highest, and even just pumping 5 to 7 minutes after that morning nursing session can be helpful. So Savannah says, Jackson is, I love that name, 5.5 months old, and I work full time. And when I'm gone, he eats 16 ounces and I only pump 6 to 8 ounces a day at work. So Savannah, again, I would highly recommend to private message our Spectra certified IBCLC page, and let's look at all those elements so that we can best provide you that support and guidance that you need. So Solace says, I breastfeed my 2-month-old, and I want him to wean of the breast and just him take from the bottle. I'm going back to work. What is a good way for him to get off and go to the bottle and use pacifiers? So, if that is your personal goal for baby, congratulations on nursing and pumping. And if that is your goal to wean baby from the breast and go directly to exclusively pumping and providing baby milk in the bottle, then we want to support you in that. And if that is your goal, then what you can do is we'll provide you some good resources to make that a gradual process, because it is important to make it a gradual process for baby. And one way is offering the breast milk in that bottle, or in another method at breast itself. So you can put baby right here and just offering that way. Another way, because baby can often get frustrated, is have another person to be another caregiver to provide the breast milk in an alternate way when you're pumping, so that baby isn't getting frustrated, because sometimes baby won't take the milk another way except for nursing from mommy. But you want it to be a nice gradual process. So Solace, I would highly recommend that you reach out so that we can provide you specific links to help you with that process, since that is your goal and we want to support you with that. So Heather says, I send bottles of pump milk to daycare with my 4-month-old, and he usually drinks 3 4-ounce bottles in 8 hours. Do I need to increase the amount of milk in each bottle as he gets older, and by how much? So Heather, at 4 months of age, about 4 to 6 months of age, they really have regulated what their nutritional intake needs to be for the remainder of that first year. So there really should not be any need to increase. I know a lot of people think that it needs to be this 8 ounces or whatever the case is, but as we talked about very earlier on, the average intake for that breastfed baby is about 25 ounces in a 24-hour period. So if it's 25 ounces in a 24-hour period, then what you would do is divide it by, that average amount of times that he's eating a day, and that should give you about how much he should be intaking at each feed throughout that 24 hours. With that being said, that really doesn't alter past that 4-month age, that 6-month age. That nutritional intake that's needed by baby remains consistent for the remainder of that first year. So there really shouldn't need to be. I would encourage you to look into that pace feeding like we talked about, because that is important. And make sure that the caregivers at the daycare where baby is that they're responding to the intake that he is needing, and that he's not being forced to finish really quickly. Because at breast, they are able to self-regulate that intake, which is different than being at breast. So, that is important. I always talk about that a lot, and I know there are people that disagree with that thought process, but there is a lot of research to support that pace feeding. So it is really important to keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that the nutritional intake of mother's milk does not increase or alter past really that 6-month age point. So, you know, as baby gets older, a lot of parents think, oh my gosh, I've got to increase even more. And that actually is not, that is not supported by research, by evidence-based information. So that average amount, again, I know that we talked about very earlier on in the Q&A that the intake is variable, you know, about 19 to 30 ounces of that baby, but the average is about 25 ounces. And that really does not increase past that age of 6 months. And so even at 4 months, you know, that regulating of that intake is usually pretty stable, pretty consistent. So hopefully, Heather, that helps you. But again, we always recommend that you can PM our Spectra certified IBCLC page, and I'm going to go ahead and put that here. So that you can private message us with right there on that Facebook page. And if you're on Instagram, just direct message us so that we can look at all the different factors that are involved. So over here on Instagram, we have a question that says, how often do I have to pump milk if I want to make a stock for a trip, and when, before or after baby eats? So hopefully you're going to get a nice little some time to yourself, because that's important. You know, that I highly recommend to pump about 5 to 7 minutes after the morning session, because that's when the hormones are the highest and when you probably will get the most yield. Introducing pumping after the feeding is always best, because you do want to offer the breast first at every feeding, because you want to ensure that baby is getting their intake before you're worrying about a stockpile. So you know, I know that as moms, and especially when we have to return to work, such as myself and many of us out there, that we get so concerned to make sure that we have what baby will need when we have to return. And that is important, but we also have to protect the fact that baby needs to be fed first. So I would recommend, and it is recommended, that you nurse baby first and then you can pump afterwards, and even 5 to 7 minutes is sufficient to start to establish some sort of stash. So I really do hope that you enjoy that trip, because that is important for us to have that self-care too, which is difficult. I know as mommies it's very difficult. As parents it's very difficult. So hopefully, again, during this time, we were able to alleviate some concerns, answer some questions. And I know sometimes moms, we get feedback that they're frustrated because there's not a cookie cutter answer, but there's a lot of areas in life that there's not a cookie cutter answer. So we have a lot of resources for you. There is going to be the blog that is live. If you go to spectrababyusa.com and you click blog, the blog is live. Am I producing enough milk for baby? And that blog is live, and you can go there and read more information for yourself. And then also, we've linked the Spectra certified IBCLC page that you can click there, and you can send us a private message, and let's talk about specifically you and your little one, because that's important that it's specific to you and your situation. And then on Instagram, you can always send us a direct message, because it's important that we look at you and your baby, and that it's not just, okay, stamp of, you know, it's X gonna be. So of course there's wonderful research and evidence-based information out there that we can go based on a guideline, but it's important to look at what's going to be best for you and best for your little one. So take a deep breath, mommies. Know that you're doing the best that you can. We can only do the best that we can at a particular time and moment in life, right? Hindsight's always 20/20 looking back. But just keep your heads up. You're doing an amazing job. We are here to support you. We are so proud of you, and so many are. And we are happy that you joined us. We welcome all the questions and the comments. And after this time is up, which is about right now, you know, it is live on the Instagram story for 24 hours, and then we will keep it on our Facebook page also. And please don't feel shy about calling us out, because sometimes I'm human and I will miss a question or a comment, and then mommies get upset, and I promise it's not intentional. So just call us out and we'll be there to help support you. And we'll make sure to put those resources that we talked about, like the infographics and the pace feeding and the CDC guidelines. We'll make sure to provide all that for you. Okay, so again, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And thank you again. We are so here to support all of you, and we hope you have a great, great day. Thank you again so much. All right, you guys have a great day.